Hey guys, so one of the biggest problems with making life-size props is that they take up a lot of space. And behind me are a lot of props that I made in my early years of costume making, and they're just getting to be too much, and I'm gonna have to toss some of them out. These props helped me to get where I am today, so I'm very grateful for them, but at the end of the day, there's new stuff coming in, and the old stuff has to go. So I'm gonna go through each one of these props and just kind of give it a proper send-off before I toss it out. Some of them will go to like other people, but most of them are just going to be in the trash. A lot of these are projects that I never finished, but I started on, and when I finally got back to them, I just wasn't happy with what I started with. So, for example, this is a Halo Reach Spartan thigh piece. It didn't look too bad, but it wasn't really like enough, so I just kind of stopped and never got back to it. Next up is a Mandalorian Blaster. I believe this is a Westar 35 pistol. Yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing back then with like props, so this just wasn't really good enough. Yeah, it still has like the rough side on the foam on the other side, so I'm just gonna toss it. This was originally going to be the thigh piece for my Mandalorian costume, the blue and gray one that I painted a while back. The reason I didn't go with this design is because it's just too clunky, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different designs. Like it has the sort of clone trooper design in the back, but then like the Jango Fett kind of design on the front. I don't really like it, so I went with a more simple design in the final product. And yeah, I'm just gonna get rid of this. Here's a gauntlet that I made a while back. It's literally just a cylinder. I tried to seal off the seam line, but it didn't really turn out that well. It's not really designed for anything because it's literally just a cylinder. So here's another gauntlet that I tried to make. This one has a much more rough seam line. It's pretty bad. And I also used a thicker foam, so it's so thick that I can't even get my hand through it, unfortunately. I also tried to put like a comp pad on it, but it was like on the piece instead of like an extra piece added on top of it. So it ended up being just not good enough. Here's a Pepikura hand plate for a Halo 4 Spartan. I didn't know what I was doing, just kind of making this for fun, but then I realized like it's paper, so it's not going to work as an actual prop, and I didn't know how to work with like liquid plastic or Bondo back then, so I just got to get rid of it. Here's some elbow pads. I don't really remember what these were for, but yeah, they're just elbow pads. They don't really go to anything, so I can't really use them. Here's a ninja kind of suit that I made a while back. I put some like 2mm foam shoulder pads on here, and then just put like some fabric down the middle to make it look like a sort of ninja style shirt. Yeah, I'm not too happy with the way it turned out. I think I can do better if I ever decide to do that again, but I don't think I ever will. I also made some thigh pads to go with it, but those didn't turn out too great either. This was going to be the shoulder pad for Commander Cody from the 2003 series, but as you can see, it looks pretty bad. I tried to put like those sort of, I don't know, stripe pieces that he has on his shoulder pads in Revenge of the Sith, but obviously it didn't really translate very well. I also tried to hide the seam lines, but it doesn't really work. So I just went with like the Clone Wars style regular clone shoulder pad that he has in the Clone Wars. This is a rather unique piece. I tried to make a gauntlet out of foam board and duct tape. It's like actual foam board, as you can see, so it's not EVA foam. Basically, it would just snap onto my wrist like that. You know, it's a neat idea held together with duct tape, but it's just kind of silly and it didn't really work, so I'm not going to keep it. Here are some like finger pieces to a sort of ring wraith style gauntlet that I was going to make a while back. It's a really cool idea, but I just don't really like this one in particular. I might do a ring wraith in the future, but it won't be with this. This was another gauntlet that I ripped to shreds because I couldn't fit my hand through it once again. The foam is just too thick, so gotta keep that in mind when you're making like a gauntlet. Don't make the foam inaccessible. Here's a thigh plate that I was going to make for like a knight suit of armor, or maybe a Destiny Titan, I can't remember. But it turned out really awkward and just not good enough. So yeah, there's also like nothing protecting over here. So I didn't like it. I'm gonna get rid of it. Here's like a sort of wrist gauntlet thing that I made a while back. It was meant to be just kind of like a hodgepodge thrown together kind of thing. And it's okay. But like, I used spray paint and it cracks a lot. So yeah, big lesson that I learned. Don't use spray paint on props that you expect to bend very often, or else it'll do that. These were some pieces that were going to go to an Imperial agent from the Old Republic, the video game. This was like a shoulder pad kind of piece there, and then this was like a wrist communicator thing. Obviously it didn't turn out how I wanted it to, so I'm gonna get rid of it. I'd like to revisit this though, because I do like the Old Republic and a lot of the designs in that game, so yeah, we'll see if I get back to it. This was like a bicep armor piece. It's very random and thrown together, so it doesn't even really fit me, so I'm gonna get rid of it. This is sort of a knight gauntlet that I actually kind of like, but I don't like the way that I had it attached to my arm. I used some magnets, but they're not neodymium magnets, they're just like refrigerator magnets. They don't work very well, they're not strong enough at all. And on the inside, I tried using fabric, the black stuff, to kind of hold it together, but it's just so complicated and random that it's just not worth keeping around. In the future, I'll just make it slightly bigger so my hand can just slip through it without having to come up with any complicated attachment things like this. Here are some gauntlets that were going to go to the ninja costume, but I got rid of them. So yeah, I'm just getting rid of these two. They were going to be kind of like that. Neat idea, but poor execution. This was going to be another gauntlet piece that I put on my arm and just strap underneath, but it's too big, obviously. And yeah, I never really had a plan to begin with, so I'm gonna throw it out. Here's like some shoulder pieces that I had. I didn't really have a plan in mind, so they didn't really go anywhere. I think it's a neat idea, but once again, poor execution. I just didn't really know what I was doing, so yeah. They had like a strap on the bottom, which is a good idea to have go around your arm, and then Velcro at the top. So yeah, good idea, just poor execution. This was originally meant to be a shin piece for an Old Republic trooper. If you're familiar with the Old Republic, then you might recognize this vaguely. It didn't really go very well, and I ended up scrapping it and using some of it in other projects. That's why there's like cuts in it. It'd be fun to revisit this in the future, but for now, garbage. Here's a clone shoulder pad that I made, but I don't like the foam that I used with it. It's just way too flexy and bendy. I just don't like it. It wouldn't hold paint very well at all, and it's too bubbly. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It looks very puffy, like the Michelin Man. So yeah, I'm getting rid of this. I'm using different foam now, so yeah. This was meant to be kind of a mask that I made out of 2mm foam, so it's super flexible. Yeah, as you can tell, it didn't really go very well because it just doesn't hold its shape at all. And yeah, there's no real point to keeping it around. The part in the middle was done really poorly as well. So yeah, getting rid of that. Here's another helmet that I tried to make. This is just an original design, so it's not like it's, you know, from anything. Has like a strap in the back to keep it on my head, and this chin strap to keep it on my head, I guess. But yeah, it just fits on. And yeah, it's very generic. The tape right here is because I couldn't keep the seam lines together back then. I was using super glue instead of hot glue, and it just wasn't strong enough to hold this thicker foam together. So yeah, I'm just gonna toss this out. There's no reason to keep it. Here's one of my first attempts at like a hand plate. I just glued it straight onto this glove, and yeah, it looks kind of neat, but again, it could be a lot better, so there's no point in keeping it around. This next piece is kind of a set. I think this is actually what inspired me to make clone armor. It's a bunch of pieces that I put together, and I think it was meant to resemble an old Republic trooper, but I just never finished it. The shoulder pad was kind of like inspired by Halo Spartans, I think, probably Emil, but yeah, it just doesn't fit with the rest of the suit at all, and the rest is, you know, kind of trooper-ish. It's a neat idea, but just old and not done very well. The strap is elastic, and it has like a buckle on the back for me to take it off. I actually wore this to like a costume party like 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a long time, but yeah, it's time to finally let it go. Here's some hand plates on gloves that I made to go with those shoulder pads. I like the black and red sort of paint job, but it's just random. It's an original design. It doesn't really go with anything, so there's no point in really keeping it around. But yeah, it is kind of cool. Yet another gauntlet that I attempted to make. This one was very bad. I actually tried sanding down the inside to make it smoother for my hand to slip through, but it's still too small. The seam line is really ugly. So yeah, I'm just tossing this one. Gauntlets are nice to work with because they're smaller, so if you mess up, you don't waste as much material. So I always recommend practicing with gauntlets so you can, you know, get things right. This one is pretty cool. It was meant to be an Assassin's Creed hidden blade. It had some cool ideas with it. It was originally meant for me to like put my finger, you know, through this hole, and then I guess it would be the other way. Then I would like kind of have it here, and I would be able to pull it out, but it never actually worked right because there's too much friction on the inside, and there's not enough like length between my finger and the ring, or perhaps there's too much length, I should say. It's a cool idea. I'd like to do something like this again, but yeah, this was just an idea that I wasn't ready to make, basically. But it is kind of cool. I guess. Like that. Yeah. Anyway, so here you can probably guess what this is. This is an ODST costume that I made. This was probably my first attempt at like a chest piece kind of armor, but it didn't turn out very good. The gap on the side is way too big. It's too tall, obviously. There's supposed to be sort of a cutoff about right there. I didn't finish the pads in the middle, but I did finish like the main chest plate. I learned a lot from this. I actually put some Velcro on the sides, and that's how I would take it off, put it on. So this piece definitely taught me a lot, but it's time to let it go because it's just big and takes up so much space. So yeah, goodbye. These were some gauntlets that I made for the ODST suit. I didn't really know what I was doing back then, so I had the backs of it open, and I had elastic so I could put my hand through it. It would go like this, but that cut wasn't really necessary, and I even put like some Velcro to try and help it look kind of cool, but at the end of the day, I just wasn't ready to handle a project like this. It's just too complicated, and I never finished it anyway, so yeah. Here's like a fun little cardboard shield that I made a while back. It's not really anything special, so I don't need to show it off too much, but it's fun to make. It'd be probably better to make it out of foam next time. Okay, so here's a kind of rifle that I tried to make a while back. It's just a PVC pipe with some foam bits wrapped around it, and a flashlight for the scope. It's a neat idea, but I never finished it. And yeah, it's not really going anywhere. Obviously, there's just a lot of flaws with it, and I didn't really have a base design anyway, which is something you always want to have. You know, you want to have a guide, something telling you, you know, where you want to be, and this just never had that, so I'm getting rid of it. Another prop that I'm getting rid of is this unfinished foam clone helmet. I never finished the tubes on the cheeks and the dome. I was never happy with. There was a lot of issues with getting it to look sort of rounded like, so yeah, I'm not really happy with it. I'm happy with the face. Like, I like the face, it looks good, but everything else, I just don't like it, so yeah, I'm gonna get rid of this one. Hopefully I'll make more foam helmets in the future, because I do like working with foam, but this one's just not good enough, so. Lastly, here's a helmet that I'll be getting rid of. It's very dusty, but this is a neat design that I came up with. I think it was based off of like Titanfall designs, because it has like the really pointy eyes. I really like this design, but I wasn't ready to handle like a helmet back then. Seam lines are obviously really messy, and yeah, it's just not really well designed. I do want to continue to do custom designs like this in the future, but for now, yeah, this is just taking up space and I can do better. So for now, that's all the stuff I'm going to be getting rid of. I hope this video kind of encourages you that if you're not happy with what you're currently working on, just know that if you stick with it, it will get better. A lot of these pieces are filled with mistakes and just incomplete ideas that I never really could finish, but I'm glad I made them because they got me to where I am today, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So thanks for watching this house cleaning video of mine. It was a lot of fun to make and to look back on where I came from. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to making better props for you in the future. See ya.